The meeting will come to order. Please rise and join in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Not so sure it's indivisible anymore.
Yeah, right. Sad but true, right?
We have the agenda in front of us. Are there any changes or?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have minutes from the previous meeting. Are there any additions, corrections?
I move approval. I'll second.
Anyone? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes approved. Public comment. Anyone? Yes.
I am back because we have not received a response to our request for enforcement. A month should be an adequate time to respond to a specific enforcement request. Forgive my impatience, but many of my family come from the medical tradition. We are used to making important decisions in a timely way. If you folks worked in an emergency room, the death toll would be staggering as you dithered. This is an attempt to clarify the public record. County officials would like you to believe the only complaint about the Erickson mine is the lack of a bond, and they can't enforce it because that part of the ordinance is not being enforced on any of the mines in Houston County. It is true that part of the ordinance is not being enforced in Houston County. It is true that part of the ordinance is not being enforced on any mine, despite several mines asking to come into compliance. This ordinance has existed for 50 years, and it is important because it protects taxpayers from the liabilities of mining and failure to reclaim after operations cease, which has happened approximately 100 times. Perhaps it's time to protect the citizen taxpayers instead of the miners. A second issue exists, is the lack of signage as required by the ordinance section 2708. This section is being complied with and enforced on other mines in this county. At the Erickson mine in particular, Judge Storino told them at the recent court hearing that it was their responsibility to check with MnDOT to see if signage could be put in place. Of course, only MnDOT can put signage on a state highway. On a mine a few miles away, also a state highway, that is used periodically, temporary signs are put up when hauling occurs. The point is, the Ericksons, like any business owner, have a responsibility to comply with the laws required to operate their business. In this case, the point was even emphasized by a district court judge. Did they fulfill that responsibility? No. They are in clear violation because they failed in their responsibility as business owners. A complaint has been filed and we expect enforcement action. Instead, county officials jumped into action on behalf of the Ericksons to protect them from being certified non-compliant, even though they are repeat offenders of at least 3 documented offenses. Try as I might, I cannot figure out why this obvious favoritism exists. Thank you.
Anyone else? Brian?
Morning.
Good morning.
I was on the agenda for 2 items. The first item, the LBRP grant agreement. We didn't get the documentation in time, so we're going to postpone that till the next board meeting. So then I'm on here for one other item, which is the 2-year maintenance and operation agreement for the airport. This is an agreement for funding for the general contract maintenance type stuff at the airport. No changes to this agreement from the previous agreement, so no funding changes, same dollar amount. It's a state agreement, standard agreement, I guess I should just say.
We need to approve it.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2-year maintenance and operation agreement for airport.
Second.
Any discussion, question?
Brian, is there any change in procedure in the way that the government disperses those funds? Anything coming along that's going to be a little different? Or is it going to stay the same? Do you know?
for the airport for this
Yeah.
stuff, nothing's changing. What this is essentially is when we hire a consultant to do some work for us, or when we have our own staff doing maintenance stuff out there, it's how we get reimbursed. So
Yeah.
we get percentages reimbursed depending on what type of activities it is, where it's at on the airport. So this is just the reimbursement of our work for the most part.
Yeah, okay.
So nothing for private contracts. So
And Brian, when was that we got that big airport meeting coming up?
don't have a date set up for
Okay.
that yet.
Anyone else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Brian, I have a question quickly, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I was at the La Crescent meeting last week on bike pedestrian plans and so forth. And I think the chair of the committee said that she's had good cooperation from Brian, and then she struggled. I said, Pogodzinski? But is that anything that you need to bring before the board that we should, or do you have, I know they're talking about third, they're talking about 25 and 6 and so forth. So just
Yep.
curious where.
Yeah, at this point, there's really nothing that's changing at this point, but the city's working on a bicycle plan and stuff, and they've worked with different entities. MnDOT's been involved with meetings, I've been involved, trying to figure out how to connect their bicycle network around town, where it's best to add on-road or off-road bike trails. Can we do something different with striping? Biggest thing on the county side is going down South 7th Street, going out onto County 6, into the 40-mile-an-hour zone, and then also on County 25 within town. At this point, nothing's changing for striping, just because there's some different concerns on, how traffic are going to interact with the bicycles. Is it better to stripe a bike lane out on the roadway when you have parking on the side when no one's parking there, or leaving it unstriped, let the vehicles, or let the bike right up against the curb. Different things that are being talked about, nothing's really changed at this point. But I can definitely come back, keep you updated if anything changes. But, and then there's
And I'll
also,
stay involved with that
yeah,
committee
and
also, but.
yeah, and there's stuff on, South 3rd Street too that we've been talking about since I've been at the county. I've had MnDOT involvement, city involvement, and again, nothing's changing at this point, so.
Okay. Very good.
Okay.
Thank you. Courtney. Good morning.
I have just one thing that I would like to talk to you about today. As over the last couple months, we've been working on this website development project, and we had our RFP sent out in June, and we received 15 proposals from that, which I was very happy with. I had sent a memo in your packet, but to just kind of recap, we had a big range of costs, anywhere from the lowest was $1,600 all the way to $56,000. So obviously a lot of disparages with the scope and the experience and the quality of those folks. The EDA met a couple weeks ago and reviewed a summary of the proposals, and they made a motion to award the bid to Hazel Street Creative. It was the only Houston County business that did submit an application and proposal. Their proposal was included branding and logo design, as well as design of actual print materials that folks can download right from the website. And so we thought that that was a really good value. The proposal was $2,850 for those 3 components, which the EDA thought was a really great value, a great proposal. So I'm open to any questions, and if you'd like to see more details, but it was kind of a clear winner in our minds. So we'd just like your stamp of approval on that.
So obviously, we're going to miss out a lot on that $56,000.
Yeah, we're gonna, a big bill is what we're gonna miss on that, yeah.
It just seems bizarre almost that you could.
Websites are very expensive, so I was very happy with this, and you know, it falls within the budget. We had set aside $4,000 a couple years ago for a print project, and that got kind of redirected to this, and so it's going to fall within that budget, and we'll have a little wiggle room too if something
Excellent.
else comes up. So
It'd be a nice addition.
yeah, I think so.
Hazelton's, that in Caledonia? I've heard that name.
It's Hazel Street Creative.
Hazel Street.
It's owned by Amanda Ray Ninneman, who's from Caledonia, and she owns the Wired Rooster here in town.
Okay, that's
So she
right.
also does freelance web design.
Good. Nice to keep it local.
Yeah, that's my
It
thought.
really is.
So you need a motion to approve.
Yep, to move forward to award the bid.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Any other questions for Courtney or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I just wanted to give you a quick update on workforce. Last time I saw you, I talked a little bit about our efforts to kind of bolster some workforce development movements here. And I had a great meeting with the superintendents. We're coming up on another meeting here in a couple of weeks. And in the meantime, I've been meeting with several other stakeholders, some workforce development folks, some people who are working with the state to kind of advance youth participation in some of these workforce strategies. And so I've been kind of just doing my research, laying the groundwork. We also held a meeting with the Seven Rivers Alliance in Houston County, and we had several different businesses show up just to talk about what was going on and what challenges they were facing. A lot of them are saying we just don't have enough people. We can't fill our positions, and several mentioned having issues with kind of the soft skills that they're seeing, and so we felt like we could start back at the school again and try to see how we can develop more of those working experiences for students who might not want to go to college or might not be the best fit. So yeah, there's been a lot of great movement on that. We're probably going to be looking at putting together a grant proposal to get some additional funding to put together a larger workforce plan. That would obviously be a very big undertaking, but I'm confident that we can do it. And Manufacturers Week is coming up in October, and my colleagues at CEDA are planning an event. They wanted to choose 4 communities, and we're going to focus on the Houston County community of Caledonia because we have a lot of great manufacturers here. So I'll keep you updated on that as the plans kind of move forward, but I see a lot of potential there, so that's kind of the main thing I've been working on.
I think it's a great idea. 3 weeks ago, I think, the La Crosse Tribune focused on Houston County and mentioned population losses and so forth. I think it'd be great if we could emphasize that you don't have to drive over to Wisconsin to be employed. You know, hone your skills and direct your interest, and we've got things here that will make you employable.
Yep.
So I think it's a very good thing that you're doing, and hopefully it'll provide some fruits here in the future.
Yep.
So
We want action, so I'm excited about it. But-
thank you very much, Courtney.
Okay.
Thanks,
thank
Courtney.
you.
Rick?
Good morning.
This morning, what I was looking to do is talk with the board in regard to A project that we've been working on for a while here. And what I'm talking about is the demolition of the Money Creek School down there that has been we received a complaint on and went down there and took a look at it and took pictures and been working with the county attorney's office on. And we went to the demolition. Like I said, we tried working with the present landowners, and there was very little progress made as far as bringing the structure up to what the board had recommended, as far as some progress being made in making that thing safe and for the area. There was some timelines set up and that were not met, and we ultimately, what happened is the county went to court to have this building raised and demolished. The courts ended up giving the property owners until August 1st to proceed with that, and nothing as of even to date has been done to further remedy the building. So what I have been doing is working with the county attorney's office and human resources, and actually building or developing a request for proposal on having the building raised and cleaned and the structures removed from the process, along with the landscaping cleaned up. There's a lot of shingles and debris and stuff laying all over in the yard too yet. I did send that request for proposal to you, outlining what I feel needs to be done. Like I say, the courts have given us, after August 1st, that go-ahead, and what I'm looking for right now, one is to answer any questions that you as a board members may have on what's being done here, and also the go-ahead and to have the building raised and removed by, I think my timetable set for May 1st of next year, which would give a lot of the contractors enough time to, basically, there's different things that have to be done, like asbestos inspections. There's an old well in there that has to be grouted shut, purged and grouted. There's an old septic system on the place that needs to be removed, different things like that.
And then who pays for it?
Well, what's going to happen is the county is going to end up having to pay for that, and what we're looking at doing then is putting liens on the property for the amount of what it's going to take to remove the structure. There is 2 lots sitting there. I've worked with the attorney's office, or not attorney, but the assessor's office, and those lots being assessed are about what it's going to take to remove the structure.
Where will the money come from initially?
Well, and that's why I'm here today. Right now it's...
You have that question, huh?
Yeah. That's why what I'm looking at doing is going out for request for proposal. And what I said is basically the board has the ultimate decision then to proceed once we take a look at all the requests and the price tag that comes in. We're not bound to it, but it gives us a chance to look at what the ultimate price is going to be for having to bring that building into some kind of compliance, or, well, not compliance, but tore down and the yard all cleaned up.
And what this order does from the court is it gives us somebody's private property that allows us, the county, the authority to raise that structure.
Okay.
But as Rick's indicated, there's a number of moving pieces in this, because it not only is the septic's on the other lot, and so we believe there's ability through the statute to be able to assess both ways. But as Chair indicates here, is as far as the money, I mean, we do have the ability to go against the lots, and in a sense what it's going to do is create a type of cloud on those lots if you guys ever want to buy them. There's going to be that lien out there, but one of the lots, I believe, is the taxes has not been paid, the other one it has been paid, but, and the auditor could give you some more insight in this, but the taxes aren't much, they're like $500, something like this. So in theory, somebody could keep paying taxes on those lots, and we have that money invested in it. With, at some point, that land will become, through an estate or something, it will become alienable, somebody will try to buy it. And then you can try to recoup your loss at that time. But, there's no guarantee it's going to be immediate. And then there's some thought that we have, I was talking to Mr. Frank about this, is that the lots are an uneven size, and that maybe we go back and have those split evenly, so they could be 2 buildable lots, and perhaps would increase our value that way. But again, as we started this process, and I had talked to Commissioner Zemanski about this, we don't have to do this. This is something that the township has the authority to do if they wish. Any municipality has the authority to do it. It's just that we sort of have the wherewithal to do it, which we sometimes do on these type of things. But certainly it's not a complicated legal process. It just, you have to fill out the right forms and get into court and serve everybody to do it. But as we was talking with Mr. Frank about this, is that that's why we're going out in this fashion, is because there's so many moving parts. We thought it would be a better way to do this is that have one sort of a general contractor was going to do this, rather than us trying to do this piecemeal, and that perhaps we could get a better rate on it. Also, if we do it, the thought would be, and who knows how this will turn out, but some of the thought would be is if we do it in this time frame that we're talking about, maybe we can get a better price because it's done over winter, when some of this stuff with these contractors are typically not working as much. Is maybe we could give us some work in the winter that you wouldn't get otherwise, and maybe give us a better rate.
Can I mention something? Is there any way we could move the time frame up a little bit? It was my understanding that to recoup the costs, we would put the cost on the taxes. And taxes will be calculated in early March. So if we could get that done a little bit sooner and get it on the taxes, that would prevent someone just paying it and selling it.
Well, that's why we're here today, is to talk about that type of thing. That's something we weren't aware of, because of your expertise on that. But something I could certainly talk to Mr. Frank about, and we certainly can talk to the contractors about that too, if that's advantageous to us to do it that way. I suspect it's something we probably could do.
You just put something on there for the contractors that work has to be completed by such and such date?
Yeah, that's what I'd anticipate, something like that. It has to be done by, like you said, that gives us a long time to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's something that's going to be a non-starter with our contractors, well, then we can reassess that at that point, come back and talk to you about that. But it's, certainly I think it would be something, because we're just at this point sending the proposals out. If we got that done, if we got those back in 30 to 45 days, we certainly have several months.
I would assume too, if we got it out now and had a date for work completed, you just need it by March.
Well,
so say January, February.
Then assessed and then.
If we could have the work completed by the end of January and have all the bills turned in by like the first week in February, that would be good.
So if you did that, it gives them almost 5 months, 4 months.
The only thing is you got to look at, you're working during the winter months, you got a hole sitting there that's going to take fill. You got a winter that you're sitting there trying to work. I don't know if that.
Well, I guess my point was if you had a long enough date, you might get more people to bid on it, knowing that, okay, I'm going to bid on this and we'll have fill work in between these jobs in October. We're going to have 2 weeks. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it gives you more chance for the contractors to figure out when to do it.
As oftentimes you see, or we certainly can write that, I would assume that maybe you have to have the job completed by Feb 1, and then we want all the bills turned in by February 15th. If we don't get anybody to do it, and then
we
that's fine.
reassess.
Right, and that's, and they got to figure out how to put the fill in there. I mean, the work's got to be completed, so.
And then if we can, we can come back to you and say, hey, it's just not going to work out that February, we're not getting anybody that's going to bid on it at those parameters, and we can reassess.
Right.
It sounds like no matter what, we'd be better off getting the liens on our tax roll than just a straight out lien, so that any work, if that's works, we'd rather get it on our taxes, whether we even wait a year, into the next tax year. Then we have a way of recouping this a lot easier, because you can't be bought without, then they can't just pay a small amount and keep this land for 20 years and let it sit
anyone
on it.
buying it would be subject to paying.
Right.
And you can set it up so it's one fee, put on one, once, or you could have it set up over so many years.
Right.
And here's a notice of lis pendens that I filed on, which means that there's a notice and there's an action pending, so anyone on those property right now knows that this is going on.
Right.
So that does exist out there to protect us at this point. But certainly we can move it forward like that, I'll talk to Mr. Frank about it, certainly we can adjust that.
Think about that, Rick.
So right now, you're really looking to go forward on getting quotes
Yeah.
due by October 1st.
Well, I think it's then, you know, I understand the question sitting here. I think maybe going through it'll give me a better chance answering the questions for some of these contractors too about whether it's going to be even possible.
Right.
Yeah.
And the pitfalls that are going to go with that. You know, trying to hurry it up.
Well, I would say go, first step would be do that, figure out where we're at.
Can't be
Right,
done,
I
we go
mean-
back to the table and see,
Right.
do we wait a year, or do we go down a different route, and it doesn't get on the tax rolls till next year?
Right.
It doesn't. You know, we
Rick?
miss 1 year of that, but I don't think we're gonna regain that money until someone buys it, and they're not gonna buy it until it's raised.
Right.
And chance of it being raised, bought, collecting our taxes within that time period are pretty slim.
Okay.
How much money are we talking about approximately?
Well, I had the property assessed, and I think both lots were sitting about 30,000 on each lot, 25 to 30. And that's probably in the ballpark, which
Yeah.
and like I said, I just had some contractors give me some ballpark figures.
Yeah,
Without having to get into specifics. Now, if they get into specific, you know, like,
Yeah.
it depends on what kind of deals they can do for the asbestos, and, you know, they gotta do those inspections and different things.
understand that.
Yeah.
that's what I was looking for too, or just a ballpark figure, you know, are we talking 10,000, are we talking 200,000? I had no idea until I asked that question.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
that's kind of what I guess I'm looking at from what my conversations with
Yeah, thank you.
some of the contractors.
And Carol, that could go into the general fund, I'm assuming, until we can recoup through tax system?
Out of the 003 or the other professional services within the commissioner's budget.
Okay. There is a spot for it anyhow.
Rick, does the owner live in the county?
No,
We live in Ohio.
Oh, completely uncooperative, huh?
I had one conversation with them the first time we notified them. They did come up and stop at the office, and I told them what we had agreed upon by a board and listed the specifics that had to be done to the facility. Like I said, they took a stab at it, but it wasn't near what the board is authorized or asked them to do to make sure it was a safe facility, and that's the last conversations we've had.
It would probably cost you what it's gonna cost to raise this to get it close to,
Mm-hmm.
at least so it would be safe for others in the area. And then the issue is all these things that we're finding out here, I mean, you'd have to totally rebuild the structure, assuming the brick is even good on it anymore after it's been through a fire.
Right.
I had that looked at, and I had a contractor that would even touch it.
Yeah.
And then the question still has to be that the fire didn't happen yesterday. It was years ago. That you've had ample time to, if you wanted to do something with it, you've had time to do it.
That's been over 10 years.
Yeah.
Pretty sure the fire's out by now. So what we need to do is, or what you'd like us to do is to approve going out
Just
and finding out.
authorizing myself or the department to go ahead and then ask for requests for proposals on what it's gonna take, or
Okay.
see what we can get.
I will make that a motion.
Second.
Any other questions for Rick, or? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay. And I'll work with, we'll go ahead, we'll have to get a letter out to the property owners. to do that.
Rick, while you're here, do you want to talk about the weed inspector thing that we talked about the other day?
Yeah. Yes, Commissioner Arnold stopped into the office and asked me about, and we've been getting some correspondence from township officers in regard to the ag inspector position. just a little history. Back in 2000, when the state was in financial bind, the county lost, or we did lose a lot of our grant funds and different things. And in order for us to, as a county, to make budget at that time, there was a lot of cuts. And one of the cuts was actually the ag inspector position that was in this county for many, many years. Since that time, those duties as just weed inspectors, and that's set by statute, is given to the township officers. And that's the way it was kind of left. I have been on the side just kind of assisting. One of the things that it doesn't cost us is we've been running tests for the county, like commercial applicators, and farmers need licensing different things, and rather than have them go clear to Rochester, we've been kind of assisting the state ag department on that. Otherwise, beyond that, we have done, as a county, we haven't done nothing as far as the ag inspector position. The position, what it does is basically it's in charge of weeds, seed inspection. In seed, I mean, like most springs, what I always did was took probably up to 30 to 40 samples of seeds that the co-ops and different people that sell seeds. I'd go out and take samples of those, put them in packets, labeling, take a label off, relabel the bags that we'd have taken out of it, and that all got sent to the state for testing to make sure that what was on the label or the seed was actually, they check it for germination, and we entered weed seeds and all that. Anyway, that's something that hasn't, when that got cut, that portion of the whole program got dropped too. Also, what we did was there was, and what the township are calling for right now is training. Every year in the spring, we would bring the township officers in, those that could attend. We'd have an afternoon of training that would go along with weed identification, and there's processes now that you go through in order for a weed, say if you got a problem that we get complaints, or it's a problem of infestation of, we'd contact the landowner. There's a process that has to go through that complaint. Anyway, also what's coming down the road and what they're concerned about is a lot of this invasive species that are starting to come in. Now you see there was nobody here, just for example, when we had the emerald ash borer and we got quarantined. The county actually didn't have a contact person here. I tried to help out as much as I could with the education, the notification. They did have an informational meeting here at the basement of the CJC that I helped with setting up and different things so that we get the word out. There's also spraying activities that the state is doing that I've been helping as much as I can out as far as notification of the areas that and of the property owners that are affected by it. And that's been taking place the last couple of years. But it's the invasive species where the township officers are starting to get very concerned at, and that's getting handed down to them but without any training. My last conversation with a couple of the officers is that we're going to try to set something up for training, and they're going to kind of take the lead, but I can contact, the extension office, the state ag department, and see what we can do as far as education. But what they're looking at is, somebody that they can rely on too, as far as from the county here. Like I said, with the ag inspector positions is starting to take off because of the invasive species that are coming into the area of what can and can we not do. So that's kind of where a little bit of the ball as far as what the ag inspector does and what townships officers are now facing, and they're looking for some assistance in moving forward too.
I remember going to many a weed meeting, we called it,
Yeah.
annual, required, it was mandatory to go to it. Does soil and water help us with this project at all?
Normally, what what I did with the weed is extension office. Yeah, sometimes we did have the SCS involved in some of the training, just for the fact that they were out there doing,
Yeah.
erosion plans and different things, and a lot of times they had requirements that the landowner had to do as far as weed control out there and different things. So that was part of the training.
Could they provide training to the township officers?
I think most of that training is going to come from the,
Extension?
basically extension and
Okay.
what I can draw in, and probably from the state ag department.
Okay.
And they had both said they would send some
People
people
down.
down to help if we couldn't kind of rejuvenate that portion of it.
So I guess I'm wondering, what exactly are you suggesting?
Oh, I'm not suggesting, I'm just looking at, I know I talked to Fred, and I mentioned that a few board meetings ago, that a couple months ago, that we've been contacted and what kind of assistance that they were looking for, and I just kind of mentioned that, and then.
Well, this weed inspector position that used to exist, I would assume it was not a full-time.
No, that was used to be part of my duties.
Okay. You want him again?
I tell you, I would look for.
What do you think the best route is? I mean, we have extension for a purpose.
Well, the extension doesn't have enforcement, and that's where it comes down to a lot of times. If
So
there's,
it would fall back on the county to enforce.
yeah.
And if there's money involved, would the
Well, see, and that's the other
township
side of it, and I talked to Fred about, and we've been kind of doing some inquiries about too, is with this invasive species and the state ag department. I know when we were back, there was discussion then about having this position partly funded through state money. Just like the DNR or the PCA pays us in money to enforce and work with farmers for different things. You know, the feedlot program, it's wetlands, it's shoreland. There's money and grant money there available to the counties that they pay us, and this would be no different. Right now, no, the money's not there. But I'm looking at the invasive species. There's grant money now that is being allocated out there to start funding, or to start funding different pilot projects to see what we can do. I think we all know, like, it's the the wild parsnip. It's there's different weeds out there that we've never had before that are now starting to take over. And very little education and very little is being done about it, at least
Is this
locally.
primarily in like the ditches and?
Well, it's everything, county ditches, and it's even, that's where we used to get it with thistles, for example, is, if the county's not doing, or the state's not doing, or the township's not eradicating the thistles and everything in the road ditch, why should the landowner sitting in the opposite fence? And that goes both ways. If you're putting a lot of effort into eradicating something, it's gotta go both ways.
What would a logical first step be at this point? Should we authorize you to apply for a grant on this
Well, I'm
invasive
looking
species
at-
thing, or what?
I'm
can we-
looking at, Fred, of maybe, as we're going forward, I'd like to maybe have a discussion, maybe with a personnel committee of, where do we go from here, or what do we do, or what's all, what kind of funding's out there. That might be something worthwhile of having a discussion on. Like I said, I know the townships are out there looking at the county, that they need some help going forward. And that's why I say, that's why they contacted me. I used to serve that position, but I haven't since 2000, so.
Well, I understand where you're coming from. I mean, I represent 7 townships, so I got a kind of a stake in this. And that's why I'm trying to get a little specific about what can we actually do at this point or in the near future. That's why I asked, okay, you said there's grant money potentially out there. Okay. how do we go about finding out for sure what's there, and what do we do?
Well, I can, like I said, we can research that, and like I said, what I'm suggesting from here on in is maybe having that discussion, start off with the personnel committee to, take a look at it, and
Okay.
what can be done, and what kind of monies are out there, and we go from there.
So, can you know what money might be out there, what grants might be available, all that sort of thing, in a month, and talk to the personnel committee at that point?
We probably could.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you can do it sooner, why don't you contact me and we'll set a meeting as soon as
Okay.
you can. And-
I know we've been floating some things, as far as in the office there of moving forward with this, and that's why I'm saying I guess I would love to sit down with the personnel committee and kind of walk through those.
Yeah, I guess my own opinion is I'd like to see what might be available to the fund position before I talked about adding one.
Oh, exactly.
So-
I'm with you there.
Okay.
And possibly the extension office involved, correct? I mean, they should have a pretty good say in this too, I would think.
Well, like I said, I've always used Extension, and they're there for the educational part of it, and they do a good
And
job of
maybe
it.
even everything but enforcement.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
where, and believe me, enforcement takes time.
Yep.
Okay. All right. You have another. You're-
Yes.
You're Aaron this morning?
I'm Aaron this morning. Aaron cannot make it into the office. He's home with under the weather. He had sent to you an agreement between the Southeast Minnesota Water Resources Board and Houston County. It's a grant agreement. There is monies there under the Title VI, and that there's what they're looking to do. There is money left over from other counties that basically didn't spend the total amount, and what they're looking is have other counties, if they want a shot at that. And what they've done is extended the timetable from August 1st to September 30th. And what we're looking at is if we extend that, we can use up to $8,500 of that. That money goes for feedlot fixes, as far as on the ground updates or fixes is what I'm saying. We've done a few of these already. And like I said, this is number 6 to extend that, and the 7, and then them grants and work plans will be coming down in the very near future too. So what Aaron asked me to do is if we could have the board approve this grant agreement, and we could send this back in, and then like I said, we could he's got projects in mind for this already that it shouldn't it's just a matter of getting it done.
That's kind of a no-brainer, right? It doesn't cost us anything.
Doesn't cost us
We can
nothing.
possibly get this 8,500 towards something, or up to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I move approval of the grant agreement.
Second.
Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Rick.
I've got 2 signed if you want to just take one.
Okay, that's fine.
And last but not least, I just wanted the board to know that we've got our last Has Waste collection as of starting at 1 o'clock this afternoon down on the Crescent. So
What's the time?
1 to 6 at that. It's right at the La Crescent drop site. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
Give my wife plenty of time to get down there.
Yep, get all the paint cans out. All the
Tess.
bulbs.
Just checking to see if John was here. We hadn't touched base this morning. On the second item here, the AFSCME MOU, we would like to have that just as giving you heads up. We are, I heard back from the union this morning, they have a couple of questions, and that's why I was looking for John to see if he and I need to touch base on that yet. So that's going to, we're going to kind of kick that can down the road a little bit till next week, if you will.
So if you have any questions about it, I'm happy to answer them, but it's not in final format as we had intended.
Have we started negotiations with all our unions at this point?
We've asked for dates. We've got it back from 3 units, all 3 LELS units. And I believe, I can't remember the exact day, it's one day next month, a Tuesday next month.
Okay. How many do we have to
We have 6 and 1 forming.
Okay.
And so there'll be an initial agreement that has to be drafted with the new LELS
Okay.
Lieutenant's Union, and BMS has conferred their description, and so that's going to go forward. We're going to, the union, I was very pleased to hear this, business representative proposed that we do all 3 LELS back to back each time, so that helps with the schedule for the commissioners and myself.
So then we'll have another 3 and possibly the one that's forming. Will we have a lot of that
We
done?
will have 7 in total.
7 total. And will we have information possibly by the end of September?
I hope we have initial meetings by the end of September, but I wouldn't
Okay.
count on it. You know, we have,
Okay.
we might be able to meet with MAPE and AFSCME, and we have the 2 49ers as well. And
Okay.
the scheduling is difficult at best. We've put the request out starting in the spring. So
Okay.
we'll push.
You know, we need
as hard
some of
as we
that
can
if
push.
possible for budget planning, you know, a little bit.
And
You know.
absolutely, the goal that I had earlier this year was for us to meet and be done with negotiations prior to budget, but
I know.
there are 2 sides to that discussion, so.
Okay. Oh, you got 3 going already, so. Good.
Yeah, I'm glad they stepped up to the plate and took off first. And secondly, excuse me, did you have any questions about the MOA? If it comes to mind later in mind, just give me a call
Okay.
as to any of that. But I'm hopeful, I put a note into the business rep that maybe she and I can talk and have any communications we need to have and amendments and clarifications made yet today, I'm hopeful. So it'll be back on the calendar. The auditor, we only have 1 higher position, and I know the auditor Miners is as well as I'm very happy to have made the offer to, and she accepted the offer to be a licensed center clerk. Jennifer Egge currently is employed at Gunderson Lutheran full-time. However, she has slightly over 6 months previous experience doing licensed center work for Winona County, where she was a temporary. And so because she has met that 6 month threshold, we are requesting that she be hired as a B22 Step 2 effective September 5th, 2017.
So moved.
Second.
Questions? Discussion? Fred?
No.
No.
Just
Oh.
aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
So do we have another interview process going for the second?
We have 2 licensed center fills now completed, and we will, you had previously approved Larissa Erickson, who has
that's
been
right.
doing some shadowing work as a 67-day employee. She'll be full-time on Monday. And, but she had filled in as a 67-day employee for my office as well as the assessor's office, and then she had some days left, so we thought it would be prudent for her to start that shadowing process.
So then the license center will be filled.
It is Fully
It is
staffed, it will be
staffed, I
fully
bet.
staffed.
Okay.
Training is going to be,
It will take a long time to get them up to where they know what they're doing. It's a big job, and the state system has a lot of problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
but both candidates come to us with substantial experience with technology and various technologies. And
That's what's
so
gonna
we think they're both quick studies in this area.
Now, Tess, I know for a couple of years, we've talked about deputy auditor over there, and I know we had, I think, a job description written up or something. Going forward, since we've got some fills in that department anyway, is that something we're still moving forward, or where are we at on that? Because it kind of stalled out.
Well, there were two things I think not to mix up. One is the classification review process, which is a result of negotiations with AFSCME, and we are on target for that. However, you are correct. Those efforts we've got position analysis questionnaires that have been done by several department staff that need to be, job descriptions need to be drafted, and those will be done yet, hopefully this fall. We've had some other things that pushed that aside since we were on the path. The job description, there was a proposed job description that came forward maybe last year, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have the time frame. I did talk with the auditor at that time. There were, the issue at that time to me was that the duties weren't existing duties. They were duties to be assigned. And many of the duties crossed over with the auditor's duties. And so if we were taking the auditor's duties to put them into the chief deputy's duties, then where did that leave us with the auditor's existing duties? We have and that isn't our classification process normally as people grow in jobs, which is what we're looking at with AFSCME's process. As people grow in jobs, their jobs frequently change over time. Sometimes this results in a higher classification. Usually it's just a different way of doing work. However, to move budget lines and supervisory lines and things like that is an abrupt change. That is not normally, it will impact other jobs that you're taking them from. So if you were to take budget lines and supervisory lines out of one job and put it in another job, then you would have a downward classification of the job you're taking it from. Highly likely. So it was not it was proposed to do that. I said that is not an evolution process. That could be an advancement, certainly. But what are we going to do with the former job? In other words, the department head job.
Okay, Tess, can I respond to that?
Yeah, that's my recollection.
I was chief deputy before I became auditor. And the purpose of being chief deputy is to learn everything the auditor does so that you are available to step in and can take over if the need arises and serve as backup when the auditor is gone. It's not to replace what I do. It's to serve as a backup and to learn and grow into knowing what the job entails and being able to step up to the plate and take over. I did that job, and I wanted to reinstitute that classification for someone who just left. And I firmly believe part of the reason they left is because they never were able to get advancement. So they went to an office where they could. Tess and I had some discussion about...
I can respond to that.
Yeah, the job description is written because we went through, or maybe not the job, but the position analysis has been done. It just hasn't been sent in. I would really, and we talked about that, I would really like to get that sent in. And for the opening, if I get people that apply that have the necessary qualifications, I would like to hire a chief deputy rather than just a deputy auditor for me to start over after 9 years of training somebody, and she was like this close to knowing everything I knew in the office and taking, you know, being able to step in for me, to go back to somebody who knows nothing, that's really hard. I've got 2 elections this fall. We have a special election in 2 school districts. Next year is another big election year. If I can attract someone with qualifications and a background, I want to be able to do that. That's all I'm asking for.
Yes. I have no issue as the HR director with any title anybody receives, but we pay people according to the work they do. Actually, the cross-training and getting prepared for succession is absolutely appropriate. Let me go back to, though, the job description that when you were chief deputy, it's my understanding the current auditor at that time was all the finance work was done in that office. Since that time, that financial component has been taken from the auditor's office and put into a finance director's office. That was a cross-county finance. That's a big chunk of the work. It's my understanding, and I don't want to argue it here. I'd be happy to flesh this out further with the Personnel Committee and Shar, but the auditors, many of those chief auditor duties, then it's my understanding, are currently being done by the auditor. The supervisory, it's appropriate to have assist with on even your chief deputy. It is appropriate to have be trained into some of these areas, but to assume primary supervisory role when it just wasn't there anymore. The budget lines cannot be transferred. There were a lot of questions I had with regards to the position analysis questionnaire, because it's supposed to be a current reflection of what is being done, not of what I would like to be done in the future. And that goes back to what is the purpose of the classification study and a comp worth study.
You and I just met and went through those, and I thought we were in agreement.
But I'd go back and look at it. I mean, I'm not sitting here prepared to debate the whole thing, but there were some
Just a couple
things.
months ago, we went through it step by step. I thought we were on the same page.
At this point, it would appear to me that the thing to do here might be to simply refer this to the people involved and the Personnel Committee.
I guess the reason I brought it up was not necessarily to have a debate, but more or less to bring up the discussion. What does the board think as far as we have an opportunity with a kind of a clean slate to, if we're going to be hiring a certain direction, this being an opportunity to do so. I guess my intention was more, do we want to look at that as the opportunity when we're looking at hiring to go that route versus another way? And we can talk at the Personnel Committee and kind of bring that back, but I more or less wanted to just bring it up that
I think it needs to be discussed at the Personnel Committee. I've heard about this before, and it's something that either needs to be decided, I think, one way or another, and right now is a great time to make that decision, before we move forward. Only thing I'd like to look at is other departments, just, make sure we do what we want. I know, Deputy Sheriff has a chief deputy, how are we working our elected people's chief deputies type, let's make sure how we want to do this. Make it fair across the board. Does everybody get a deputy? Who needs a deputy, who doesn't? I don't. But that's something personnel can talk about, because then they can talk a little more freely and find out how this all works, because I can't say that I know.
And let me be very clear. It is not my role to, nor would I ever support, keeping people down. In fact, I find myself on kind of being accused on both sides of that fence, at different times. My job is simply to look at the current duties being done, and are they being paid appropriately? Are they being underpaid or overclassified or underclassified, because it becomes an equity position for us in the county. We do make our reports to the state during our comp worth analysis and all. And so so doing the audit, the personnel audit, that is my role, is just to do that. It is not to say, where do you want to go? I can assist you in that process. But when looking at whether a person, and our office I get lobbied. I'm not saying that's what happened here, but by various folks that sometimes they believe the position, and let's not talk about this position,
Right.
but sometimes the position, they understand it to be different than the reality of what the level of duties and authority really are. And we do have a lot of people doing a lot of assisting. We do expect them to be fully cross-trained. We should be looking at succession planning. And
That's where I was going, is we have to look at, in what departments do we need somebody to be coming up through the ranks, and do we need a step for them to keep coming up through the ranks, so that we have prepared people when somebody leaves or not,
And we
where
also-
do we need those type of?
And we also have to balance that as a government employer with equal access to our jobs and
Right.
equal opportunity, and making sure that we don't have all of our positions should not always be filled at the lowest denominator. It is good to have employment flow back and forth, so.
Okay. Your schedule is tougher than, I just have to make sure my wife gets that hazardous material.
You let me know when she does, and I'll.
What-
I stress that time is very critical.
Yeah, I was just going to ask what would be the earliest.
I can do
Available.
any morning.
Could we do it today?
Well, actually,
We got a health meeting at 1.
yeah, but we're gonna have a lot of time in between there, and I guess if you guys can do it, I'd rather do that, take up some of that time, otherwise I go home for a half an hour to turn
Yeah.
around and go back.
I'm okay.
I don't know, does that work?
Go back and check. I'll make it work, but I can't tell you exactly when.
At
I
least
have
it'd
to
be a
look
good
at-
start.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. Anything else?
No, that's all.
That's all?
That's it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Carol, I have a question. Can
I
you
don't know, we have a joint meeting.
find out for me, well, I'm sure you can, could you let me know
I don't know.
how the county does in terms of cost effectiveness of the license center?
Oh, I have those numbers. I can give you that.
Okay. Thank you.
You mean as far as how,
Whether
Making money
we're
or
breaking
not.
even,
Yeah,
making
yeah.
money, losing money.
We lose a little bit. Many years ago, we made money on it, and the fees that the county gets to keep for what we do not increase as much as the state's portion increases.
Okay.
We collect many, many millions of dollars in the license center, and the amount we get to keep does not quite cover the cost to run
Okay.
it, which is very unfortunate. Like I said, it used to make money. We lobby almost every year for
Yeah,
fee
we do.
increases. It's like knocking your head against the brick wall to
Okay.
get the state to increase our portion. But I can give you the exact numbers.
Okay. I would be curious. Thank you. Action items. Approve claims, human service, and license center disbursements.
so moved.
Second?
Any questions or
I
comments?
get a chance to review them this time.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Adopt resolution approving the application for exempt permit for NWTF Rush Creek Longbeards chapter for gambling activities at Ferndale Country Club.
I'll make a motion to approve the application for the exempt permit.
And I will second that.
Anybody have a question or comment?
I just have a question. We do this for anything that's not in a city? Otherwise, the city
Correct.
has to approve the
Right.
gambling,
That is,
correct?
yep, absolutely correct.
So anything that's in our county, not in a city,
Mhm.
Yep.
that's all you got.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. consent agenda. We got correspondence to payroll regarding recent changes, correspondence from Camp Winnebago regarding closing a facility, and correspondence regarding tons delivered to XL during July 2017. Not being closely involved or really involved at all, to be honest, Camp Winnebago.
That was a surprise to
I
me to
was,
see that too.
extremely surprised. Does anyone have any,
Input?
I know it's
explanation?
been slowly struggling over the years to get enough, and they've lost a lot of clients. You know, there's a lot more agencies, I think, that take care of clients. At least from the paper, they went from like 400 a summer to 100 and some a summer. You know, they're down to about 25% of what it was.
Okay.
But you know, the maintenance and everything of all the buildings is still there, so they're every year it's getting harder and harder to operate. That they just, it's, you know, hard to keep people on boards. They're, you know, they were even running bingo, everything else to try to make enough money to keep it afloat.
Who owns it?
It's
Nonprofit.
nonprofit organization of Camp Winnebago. It was started
Which
in
has existed for,
60 years, I think.
okay, so,
50, 60, yeah.
so it gets sold.
Goes to whatever's left. It says we'll go to another nonprofit if there's anything left after everything is
Settled.
settled.
Now, would that be something if somebody was interested in coming in and?
Making an offer.
Yeah, is that possible, do you know?
Yeah, I mean, they're hoping, from what I've been told, they're hoping to sell it, not necessarily, I think, as whatever, you know, be it for handicap, be it for park or camping, or I think it's gonna take a while to even get to that system, I would guess, by the time they get through all the financials and where the money's all gotta go, and then how to even maintain it until you can get it for sale again. And it's really too bad.
Yeah, it really
You know, it's
is.
a beautiful
Yeah.
area, and I have a permanent site down there, and I love it. Or had a permanent site down there.
And that's all gone now too, or will be?
Yeah, into the camping season, there's no more camping. You know, they rent out a nice size hall up above. You know, been a fair amount, you know, a few weddings there every year, and that's, you know, not cabins, but they have downstairs quarters and stuff, so it'll be really missed.
Yeah, okay. Just as an aside, drove through Wildcat with some friends this weekend. Wow,
Isn't that nice?
packed,
Yeah,
absolutely packed.
be busier now. Everybody trying to find a spot from Camp Winnebago.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
You know, there's 28 permanent sites down there.
Teresa and Charlotte, that'd be a good question for you. What about expanding Wildcat? What's the parameters if we wanted to go bigger? Is that?
As far as more permanent?
Yeah, I
sites?
mean, acquiring more area. What's the?
Oh, I don't know if we can acquire more area.
Okay.
I think we've got most of what the Corps was willing to lease to us.
Okay.
We could look at possibly expanding the number of permanent or seasonal sites, but
Yeah.
the Corps has been very controlling over what they
Really?
will allow down there. We would have to get their approval to do so. They wanted to, they've always in the past wanted it to be very transient. And they've been kind of opposed to people having a site that they use over and over and over.
Sure.
However, that's where our good income comes
Yeah.
from.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I'm just thinking, you know, if
course,
Camp
every-
Winnebago is kind of,
In flux.
yeah, you know, that okay, you make a good point. Do you go and advertise that, hey,
Yeah.
go to
Yeah.
Camp Winnebago to camp, or I mean, go to
Wildcat.
Wildcats.
That's a good point.
Right.
You know,
Could
I
we
mean,
generate a lot more income
I
by
will
offering more?
talk to Jake down there and just see what is still open for, because I know that question's gonna come up real quick here.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
That's a good idea.
Well, when I
That's
was
a
on
very
the,
good idea.
when I was on the board previously, though, we went through, we went to a lottery.
We did.
Is that,
The lottery, initially, we had to do the lottery every year. And we lost a lot of our campers,
I
our
remember
single
there was a
campers,
lot
because.
of upset people.
Right.
Yeah, we had people, for example, there was one couple who lived in Florida in the summer, or in the winter, and they lived out of their camper at Wildcat every year. Well, to not know if they, from year to year, if they have that site, they left. And there were many situations like that. Right now, we are required to hold a lottery, I believe it's every 4 years. The last time it came due to do one.
This is a core's requirement.
Correct.
Right.
But the last time we were due to do so, we requested and were granted a variance, and were not made to do it because we were having, at that point, a hard time filling our permanent sites. But like you said, now with Camp Renegade going away, maybe we could add one.
Yeah, I mean, it raises a question on both sides. One is, people say, well, it's not fair, how am I ever gonna get in there?
Right.
And the other side, like you said, gee, if I can't be certain what's going on, why would I wanna
Well,
do this?
and I look at Packer tickets. It takes 30 years just to get on there. That people have them for life. Like, okay, if you're there, I mean, I was there.
the way it is.
You know, I mean, I can see that argument of somebody saying, "Hey, I put in the time and waited, and it came open, and why should I have to give it up?"
And if you have campers that are good campers and they've treated us well and paid timely, you wanna kick them out.
Right. But then I see the flip side of somebody saying, "Well,
Yeah.
if I'm going to get this crappy
Right.
site every year."
Yeah,
then,
that's
just
you know,
where
I mean, I
I
get
why can't I ever-
both. Yeah, I get both sides of that argument. You know.
I'm taking a real chance here, but they could always get Viking tickets.
Well.
No way, but.
It's nice down there though, with the new bathrooms
Yeah.
and
Yeah, it
a
is.
lot of the work they've done there. Also, speaking of parks, did Brian send a picture of what they did at Bocce Park with the new parking lot? And
They
the-
didn't get it going.
It's really nice.
Is it?
Dick went down to look at it, because it's his thing. It's really nice. Just needs to have now bathrooms, porta potty type idea, and picnic tables. It's really coming along. I know he's gonna bring it up at the next Wildcat meeting,
Good.
or park meeting, I should say. I don't know when that is,
I
but.
don't know if we got one, if it's actually on the schedule.
We schedule them as needed.
Yeah.
That's what I thought, I said I don't
It's
know
not
whether
a,
there's one.
it's not a set.
Right.
No.
Mhm.
All right, anything
Okay.
else? We need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make
So
a motion
desired.
to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Discussion items. Fred?
Yeah, I have one question on Tess's request on the agenda here. There was an item on the GIS thing, and we never really got to that.
Also, it said closed session, that's.
That was removed.
That was the
That was-
MOA.
Oh, that was removed?
That was removed,
Yeah.
Okay.
but we didn't get to the GIS discussion.
Okay.
I don't
You-
think that's on her updated agenda.
I think she
Well-
sent out an
She sent out the
updated
separate
agenda
agenda,
right
maybe
at
there's-
I've,
yesterday afternoon or something.
okay, because I suppose I have the one that we got from you last week
Right.
that
And I got a
I'm
new
looking
one
at.
yesterday, and I don't see it on there.
Okay,
So was there maybe some folder?
then I
that was
missed that then. Okay. I have nothing else.
Well, I had a very unfortunately busy week last
Are we
week,
into-
so.
Are we into,
Commissioner reports?
okay. before-
Well, let me just back up a sec.
Yeah,
We had a meeting yesterday and specifically designed in order to bring the committee's recommendation for GIS. Can we not do that under?
Do you want me to call Tess and have her come down?
Sure.
I can do that.
So in the meantime, Teresa, why don't you go ahead?
Oh, the only thing I had was that search committee for extension. We had 31 applicants for the regional position that we had to sift through yesterday and offered to 3, which we'll have more interviews in September. So that took up my day up in Rochester. Yeah, Fred had called me about the GIS thing after your meeting, so.
Okay. Carol, excuse me, could you see if you can find Tess, please?
And we also have to put on our agenda thing that we have a joint public health meeting today
Oh, okay.
at 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock in Maple.
Is there also department head today
Yeah.
too?
Is that at noon?
Department
It's
heads
at 1 o'clock in
one.
Maple.
Department heads at 1 also, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No,
Well, that's,
can't be at both.
Mm-mm.
the last time I flipped, it came up heads and I came here.
I'm gonna go to the health if you wanna go to, just if so you know, me and Teresa are probably both gonna be going to the health.
I'm going to
and
help.
welfare. I'm
For
going to
sure.
health and welfare.
I was planning on.
That
going to
leaves me going to department head meeting, doesn't it?
Okay.
Or, yeah.
Fine.
That's good. We like having you, Fred.
What's that?
We like having you there.
I don't know whether that's good or bad.
It was meant positive, so take it that way.
Thank you.
I'm chair of the health, so I have to be there.
Yeah, more than likely, yeah.
So, anything else, Teresa?
No,
Sam, ask you a question. I can make a motion to go into closed session to discuss possible land options for purchase.
I'd have to take a look at that, but I want to say off the cuff without any, no.
Well, there is a deal if it talks about our position as far as financial opportunities, because we can't discuss it openly and then they know our
See,
position.
that's what I was gonna say, it depends on
Right.
the exact specifics. You know, more of it's just to, you know, from my understanding, it's more of, you know, if you're in a bargaining type of situation where you don't wanna let your price out or something like that, but whether you're talking about buying the Smith property, the Jones property, I don't think so.
You don't think you can go into closed session, but then you're letting the Smiths or the Jones know that you might be discussing their property.
And I don't think I really see an exception in there. I'd have to, you want to take a look at it, but I really think it's more of if you're in discussion with the Smith and Jones and then you want to know what the price of the property is or something like that.
Well, how about, I mean, if, say you're interested in the Smith's property, as one commissioner, you're interested in it, but you want to know if the rest of them are interested in it, you can't go into closed session to discuss whether we're interested in it.
That would be my understanding, is that it's supposed to be a
It
public setting.
should be open to the public
Yeah.
to decide if you're interested in the Smith's property
Yeah.
or not.
And then I think you go into closed to discuss the amount.
Right, once you're, if you
Specifically,
decide that
Smiths
you're
came through
interested,
with an amount and say, is it, you know, what's our counter to that going to be?
okay.
So now you got me curious.
Well, yeah, I mean, we gotta make a move on this sometime, so, there is property next to the county highway shop that is possibly for sale, and I think it's something we should be looking at as commissioners. No matter what, to rebuild that, we need more area.
Who owns that, Smith?
It's Smith with a couple of other parties that got lots around there. What we'd be looking at is, I suppose then, if everybody could look at that property and see if we have an interest in it. The land we're on, with the amount of water retention we're gonna need, and to be able to keep it operational while we rebuild, is not near big enough. And we're gonna need some extra property to even maneuver things to build, let alone expand the holding area. The shop area has to get some bigger just because of the trucks, no matter what, because the trucks are bigger than what was originally designed. Even that would have a hard time. You know, we can clean up the area, but we can't build, no matter what, we need some area.
Scott and I met concerning this about a week ago, or a little more maybe, and he had some detailed mapping, and if we are indeed going to build on site, it makes very good sense to have some space until, you know, you can't tear a building down and then utilize it at the same time. I mean, you gotta
Right.
have some.
You have to have areas to.
Areas to, so I think it's definitely worth exploring, and Scott's already done some footwork and has people he's talked with, so I think it would be prudent to
look
look into
into
it.
a possible purchase of, I guess, do we have to say at this point? What?
Let's do this.
Yeah.
Instead of doing that, I guess I'm okay if we want to keep this somewhat on the down low, having Scott explore this potential and finding out if there is a offered price, and then bring that back to the board and we can discuss it in closed if we've got kind of a price and you can kind of fill us in.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I also already know that there is no offered price,
Okay.
but it's negotiable.
Would they be?
They would like to meet with the county if we were interested and discuss price. So assuming we would need a motion for, or we'd have to do set up an action item to have a closed section to negotiate. If we wanted to move forward, if we all felt
What is the correct
like
way to
moving
handle that
forward,
negotiation process, Sam?
Probably just speak to me in my office. That's what I would
Well,
say.
I guess let's do this. I'm okay, whatever the consensus of the board, having maybe Scott work with Sam, figure out the proper procedure and protocol to go forward with this.
Yeah.
Everybody's okay
Yes.
with that then?
Yeah, and again, this can be part of it, but I know we talked about how we could recoup.
Right. And if that should be discussed at this time?
I think we can make that part of your discussion with
Okay.
Sam.
Oh, with Sam, okay.
So,
You talking about other land recoup, you mean?
well, we want to try to minimize what it would cost us by recouping some in.
I can read between the lines, I got you.
Well, I mean, there is other parts of the county that are in need to be moved. The recycling center needs more land.
And if we sold that.
They are paying a lease in Caledonia. They're sitting on acres in Houston. If we could combine them with a county shop, we could pretty much recoup any price with the sale and the lease of what it would take to purchase extra land by the highway shop in town.
Well, and I know we had discussion of that would be potential to bring that out there as well.
Yes, I mean, they're outgrowing their area.
And that building's kind of shady.
Right. So, I mean, there needs to be stuff done there real soon in the future anyhow. So I
Okay.
think that should be part of our future plan.
So you have your charge. So,
All right.
okay. Anything else? Scott, anything else?
Nope, that's it for me.
Okay.
No, just obviously went to the county fair and that was pretty fun.
Yeah.
But other than that, no.
Okay. I went to the fair too, and so now my wife wants a camel. But typical of, I had somewhere else to go for whatever this is worth. I got a complaint. So we eat, and I get a thing of ketchup, and I'm dressed for my next place I have to go. And I didn't use much of the ketchup, so I go over to a barrel that's completely empty and drop it in.
Boom.
Ketchup all over. But no, we had a nice time there, and Fred said that he thinks the fair went over well.
I talked to a couple of fair board members, and they were very pleased with the way things had gone.
They got decent weather.
Well, yeah.
I thought it turned out nice too, where they put the goats and sheep down the middle of the horse barn. They had plenty of room, and that turned out well. You know.
Yeah, there was a little restiveness about that before the fair started, but the one individual that I talked to on the fair board after the fair was over said he hadn't heard anything negative about it during or after the fair.
Yeah.
They still go through a process of go down their checklist, and so we'll see. But he was very optimistic on that front.
And
Now, the lease thing, still, I mean, those people were busy the last couple of weeks, okay? And so maybe by the next time we meet, well, I mean, we might have something back from them to report. But the reaction that I got from them was very positive on that. So I think we're okay. I don't think there'll be any question about it. Tess is here.
Oh, okay. Gus?
Yes, Commissioners.
We had met about GIS specifically yesterday in order to bring forward a recommendation from that committee.
The committee has, the committee met, I guess, twice now. And I understand, and Commissioner Arnold and Commissioner Miller both were there yesterday. Quite a bit of feedback from the IT director, as well as the zoning administrator. And so they had quite an in-depth discussion on their understanding of needs and everything. There was, I believe everybody has read everyone's comments that were written as far as needs and how they use GIS services. And it's the recommendation of that body to enter an agreement with Schneider for services at this time with a, if I'm recalling this correctly, with a review to revisit this in 6 months to see how that is going. Also to, with the idea of being forward thinking, getting as much training as we can for our own staff, being cognizant of some of the security issues we have with regards to our layers to make sure that they are not compromised, and to and also to determine start looking at how we might be able to use GIS in the future and what projects we would like to, we being the county and department heads as a whole, focus on that would help us better serve the residents of this county. And so that's where they are right now.
Okay, and
They feel that all the parcel maintenance and parcel updates could be addressed through this.
okay, and then the in-house coordinator would stay.
And the coordination of this effort at this time would stay in GIS. Excuse me, pardon me, stay in the assessor's office. I believe that's, I didn't come with prepared comments, so I believe that's a complete recap.
I think that covers it.
Now, the question is, in this part of the agenda, we probably can't be making a motion. I'm not sure.
Do we have a contract?
No, what we would be looking at is giving a directive, if you will, to enter into a contractual agreement. The agreement would have to come back to the board for approval.
You know, I went to
Okay.
that department head meeting with several of you commissioners, and you know, we do have an agreement with Schneider already that we can call them with questions. And I have a hard problem justifying spending another $30,000 or whatever the quote was with Schneider Corporation when we have people in the county that are already educated in GIS.
Well, in fact, Commissioner, the goal is to reduce the financial liability, if you will, to use our resources as efficiently as possible. We do have, one of the goals is to continue to educate people in GIS. We have several people that have different, GIS is just like saying IT to me, because it is a matter of technology and how you use it and who all should be having it at their fingertips and what do they need within that realm. So yes, that is the part of the goal. This contract would provide for 12 days, 1 day a month training for staff, to continue to educate staff to do GIS as it pertains to their particular office and their division. as well as 144 hours of time to do some of the updates and maintenance and maybe what needs to be done to corrections to a layer, etc. Andy's probably and Aaron are more equipped, or even the assessor's more equipped to talk to that than I am. However, you are correct. We have people, that's the whole point, that are doing GIS within their respective departments, several departments, in fact. So it's to decentralize it, not to have it centralized as such, until we can determine what it is we might want to do with GIS going forward in the future, and what that would look like. And that's my understanding where everybody left it. We've had close to 3 months, I believe, since Dan has left. There have been, I believe, somewhere between 11 and 15 requested items. I understand that various departments have met those requests. Certainly there's a ways to go with training.
But if we have
so it's-
somebody in-house that's already educated, has a degree in GIS, why
I
would
am
we
not aware
utilize
of
that
anyone
person?
having a degree in GIS, but maybe we do. But I'm not aware of anyone with a
who would
degree
that
in.
be?
Eric has surveying and GIS.
So we don't need a full-time surveyor then?
Well,
I don't believe we do. I mean, our goal with the surveyor is to be remonumented in 8 years. I don't know why we need to be remonumented in 8 years. Why can't we be totally after that it's just a maintenance program, so we wouldn't need a full-time surveyor if we had to be remonumented in 8 years. I don't see, so we're remonumented in 12 or 14 years.
And if
But
you were to
we
do
what's
that,
necessary at the time instead of the goal of getting it all done and being done.
So then it would be potential to just make part-time, like surveyor and part-time GIS?
That
And
was the
just-
thought I had, was to make it a slash position, let him grow in the GIS while he has a full-time position, because you can, I think surveying can be full-time if you want it to be. I think it can be part-time if you want it to be. Because just on how fast we want this whole county remonumented or not. He's gonna have duties to help out the highway department at times and different things that he's gotta get done. But the remonumenting is more, if they're gonna be tearing up a highway road, if there's some big, something we want to buy as a county or something like that. But other than that, it's just for the county to keep putting more and more pins in, but we got a lot of pins in. We're in better shape than probably any county around,
Well, and
survey-wise.
The highway department, don't they, they've got surveying equipment to do a lot of their own stuff, don't they?
But they're not legal
Like
land
licensed,
surveyor.
right.
I mean, they do
But I
a
mean,
lot
they
of
just
their
need
own
somebody to
surveying.
sign off on it though, right?
But say if they're gonna buy property, then they need the land surveyor
Sure.
to buy the property to build the road. That's when he comes in more than anything else.
when
I guess I have a real problem with a probationary employee suddenly assuming what I've been told is such an important function. Let's see how he does on his probation and what he's been hired to do. He hasn't completed his probation on surveying.
Extend his probation.
Well, I think we have a-
Actually, though, he
Survey
got
could've been-
sworn in the same time the rest of you got sworn in
And
January.
that's something that can be dealt with if that's something we wanted to do. But I think if we start out, this is gonna end up in somebody's lap here at the county. Everybody, all the department heads basically wrote in that they want somebody in-house. They feel it's really necessary, and I agree with them. There's gonna be so much stuff of day to day. If that person's not there, if there's not somebody there to help coordinate it, I think it's gonna be a problem.
Well, the proposal was to have someone coordinate it, but let me just, it's whatever this body decides, we will do. I just want to throw out a couple of things to be cognizant of. When you're looking at your staffing, one of the things you should be looking at, in my opinion anyway, it would be my advice, is to look at what is the return on your investment for the dollars invested in this position. The other is, are these positions properly classified, and are we paying properly for the position? The GIS position is classified 2 classes below, less than what the surveyor's position is classified. That will have to should be, I should say, accounted for in how we compensate any combined position.
But would
Such as
not
that.
have to be, as you said.
Well, from an equity perspective, Commissioner, I would argue that it should, because you're
You can
looking
argue
at...
it, but it doesn't have to be correct.
I know Dodge County went with a half surveyor and half GIS because of cost-saving measures.
I would just say, if looking at from other employees' perspective, to see that someone else is paid for a higher classification to do lower level work would not be something that I would be able to explain why we did that. But you are
if we
correct.
can save-
This board can do whatever
Right,
this board
correct.
wishes to do.
We could make a double classification, not pay him any more than he is, not hire this company to do near as much work, hopefully, get somebody trained in GIS at the same time for the money we're paying, and we should be saving money.
We
So-
would, go ahead.
Well, okay. So I've heard like many different things. So I just want to make sure that I'm understanding the 2 debates. So the one debate is hiring Schneider to do a lot of the work and having an in-house coordinator, right?
Right.
And
To tell Snyder what to do for each department.
okay, but then we would have Eric here still to do a lot of the in-house stuff as our in-house trained person if there would needed something in-house. And then you'd have Schneider for some of the bigger projects or things that if
Well,
Eric couldn't handle.
we're talking 2 different debates here. The one
Well-
that's being brought up,
Well, right. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to
And
make
then,
sure we're
and then the
following the
other
same
debate,
line.
then the second debate is not having Schneider, just having Eric do it all, right?
right, having Eric do it all, we already have a contract with Snyder for hours to get help as needed. Or we don't have Eric, we put it under the assessor and contract higher with Snyder than what we already have by 30,000.
Right. But we still have Eric though, even under that scenario too, right?
But
We
he'd
need
be
to
in
do-
his present capacity
Yeah.
of land surveyor.
Yeah.
So we have assessor's office in charge of deciding who and what departments and being the go-between between Snyder Corp and the county.
Okay, because I was thinking it would be a coordinator, an in-house coordinator, and I might be totally off from how I'm understanding this, but you would have an in-house coordinator that would say, okay, well, this stuff we can do in-house, Eric can handle this and this stuff's a little bit bigger for this department, so we send that off to Schneider. So we wouldn't, I guess I was thinking as a dual role, but we're thinking it would be Schneider only and nobody from in-house? I don't know if I'm following this at all.
Okay,
That's all I'm understanding, Snyder
okay,
only.
go ahead, Fred.
Well, I'm looking at this from, I hope, a little bit more long-term perspective. I know that between I've heard half the counties in this state, I've heard 3/4 of the counties in this state have done substantial reorganization in order to better serve the constituents and to get the duties performed better aligned with the costs of those duties to the county. And that winds up with, according to counties that have done it, substantially better service to the taxpayers and a substantial cost saving along with it. Well, if we put the GIS thing in-house at this point, we sort of tie ourselves in to not being able to think about that quite as much as I would really like to, from my standpoint. So if we, at this point, temporarily, we sign a year contract, we can get out of it with 30 days notice. If we sign a year contract with Schneider and use someone who could do the in-house coordination that's necessary, that Schneider has said that they need, out of the assessor's office or someplace else, if that's the idea, I think we'd be better off long-term, because that would give us a better opportunity to manage county government. That's where I'm coming from.
So let me be the third
Yeah.
the third potential option here. So I got 2 and 2. Just for some discussion. Is this, I guess I'm looking at this as maybe almost an obvious, how do you say it, an obvious compromise.
Meeting of the middles?
Yeah, I mean, it almost seems like we're kind of arguing, but coming to the same point. We had Dan here getting paid what he got paid. If we had Eric, who's got training in GIS, but the surveyor, if we still had him, the part-time surveyor, part-time GIS, like you're proposing, but still had Schneider Corporation for $30,000 contract, we're still saving almost half of what Dan was getting paid. Eric's doing a fair majority of the work in the GIS, but you have Schneider on contract for backup for the very, big projects or things that if he gets swamped with a lot of surveying stuff, he could pass off. I guess that's the way that I'm seeing this working out, is you still have cost savings, which you're arguing, right? Because we're still saving half of Dan's salary.
Yeah.
But then still having somebody in-house already certified in it doing the majority of the work, but just having Schneider as a redundancy company that if surveying gets really heavy, he can say, hey, you know what, I need you guys to help to do this. I don't know. I mean, it just seems like that's kind of what we're arguing over.
I don't know. Okay, I guess I don't want Eric or someone doing the majority of the work.
Okay. So that's the argument, is having him stay full-time.
Well, if he has GIS knowledge, then it should help him a lot in his surveying position. Go at it, get this that was supposed to be done in 10 years, and now we still have how many years of get at it. If that was a goal, let's fulfill it. And if he's got GIS knowledge, it should go hand in hand with his surveying knowledge. I personally think that Dan did a lot of things that the departments can and should do. And therefore, if we have somebody who will say, that doesn't need to be sent to Schneider, and let Schneider fill a higher role, training people in departments, and when we have a project, then we can use the Schneider hours to do the project. But I just think we have somebody with the potential in the assessor's office that has at least 10 years of proof of how efficient and dedicated one can be. So I would like to go that route, and if we're in fact a team, and Eric has this knowledge, I don't know why he couldn't share it without a job change. certainly have, we're not 50 miles apart, walk downstairs and ask a question.
You know, and that could definitely go the other way where, you know, Eric could use all these people that have some knowledge in it. You know, he's only, at best, he's 50% GIS, so that, you know, I don't think we need Snyder Corp at all, but some training maybe the first year to get him up to speed, and for him to be able to train the other departments. You're gonna need someone that trains these other departments so that you're not relying on them so much. I think it fits way better with a half-time person. You know, all of our department heads wrote in, they felt we need an in-house person. I believe them. I think we had them write in their comments for a reason. You know, I don't believe that we can have an outside agency answer all these questions timely when we need them. And GIS is only going to build. If we don't have somebody starting soon learning the system, being able to help these departments, because everybody can't learn GIS to the point that you're going to need in the future.
So I guess why could we not go? Could we go with Schneider? We had a 1-year contract. Go with Schneider for a year, and still look at getting people trained, or like you said, we've got Eric, and just see how it goes for a year. And if it's like, hey, it turns out we really don't need Schneider, we always get out, right?
Yeah, we have a 30-day out.
And if it's like, you know what, turns out we really do need Schneider, we can always extend it.
Yes, I think the benefit of that is the training, and sometimes the change is difficult for people, but it's the training that will allow for more nimble processes, as well as some of these projects you're talking about. Potentially, the more we can do in-house, the more we can get some of these projects like feedlot layers and those things done. Some of the a lot of the challenges, I think departments have stepped up to the plate. Some of the challenges that they've had, they've addressed. Certainly, the surveyor, if there is a parcel issue, the surveyor should be stepping in, you know, I would think, to assist with that. I don't know that that has to be, that you can't really segregate surveyor from GIS. That is not an intention to do that. It is an integral member of the team. I don't know what the demands at any given time are by the highway department, on the survey time. But I do think training and looking at future needs to go forward is a recommendation that I would be bring forward as well. And although the concerns are real that people have, although I think I haven't heard, maybe you have, but I haven't heard that any needs or requests have gone unmet. That folks have stepped up to the plate and have done, I think Aaron is a great example of that himself, and have taken advantage of the education and learning opportunities so that he could do more in a more timely manner. It's
Carol? I'm going to put you on the spot because you were on the committee. Do you have any comments?
I just see it where we don't really have an inventory of knowing what Dan did for each of the departments and whether it was something that Dan should be doing. And I did not see what the department heads had sent in. But I think, in looking at the whole scheme of possibly looking at a land use department, to have the Schneider contract temporarily, sign it for a year. If you don't end up finding that that's the way that it should be here, but I just think that that's probably a way to go, just to make sure we have somebody there's that expertise in the GIS area right away with our product, because they are the ones they're very familiar with our data.
Okay, thank you.
What Carol said made me recall one other point. GIS is like any field. There are particular divisions of that one focuses on for particular expertise within the GIS field. So one of the benefits we would get, and that would help us then determine how we wish to proceed going forward, is that you may have 12 to 14 is on their team of different kinds of GIS experience. So it's not just one person being a jack of all trades. It is a team of individualized subject expertise within that discipline. So that may or may not turn out to be an advantage for us. That's what we would have to determine.
You know, I like what we could do here. Let's do a temporary hiring of Snyder Corp., put it under the land surveyor, so that has the most experience that I know, and he can do that and he can learn. So his probation, if it's a problem, will be up in 6 months. We'll be able to see how he does and whether we want to stay with that route.
Well, what we need to do today, I think, is to give Tess direction to bring forth a contract from Schneider for our next meeting, if that's possible.
We've all got copies of the contract, haven't we?
Well, there are certain clauses that we would, I've worked with the county attorney's office, that we would want to negotiate with them. Some clarifications.
Would that be?
Which is what we do with any vendor.
Yeah, that
So
would be possible. That would be possible in 2 weeks.
Very possible.
Yeah.
I guess I'm not getting it. What are you asking for?
Well, we can't do really anything today. One, we're at the wrong time in the agenda.
Yep.
And two, we don't actually have a contract that the personnel or anybody or the legal department would advise us to approve. We simply don't have a piece of paper that's viable.
Didn't
So,
Snyder Corp.
okay.
give us a contract to look at?
They gave us a proposed contract, so what I do is I look at those contracts. I, in conjunction with the county attorney's office, I look at them from to address the liability, jurisdiction, insurance, and all of those other things that we as a county insist on, and we would enter that discussion to see if we could negotiate through that. We haven't done that yet because we haven't been at that stage to do that.
Now, can you do that without a official motion, since we're in the wrong time of the agenda?
If you give me a direction to do that, I would go ahead and do that, yes. It's
Okay.
just I would not do that normally without some kind of indication that that's somewhere where the county, and then bring it back to the board for some formal adoption or rejection, consideration, whatever.
And then we would have a second look at it. What do we need to do to give you direction?
A head nod, I guess.
Okay.
Might as well look at the contract, see if it's...
Is there consensus?
Yeah. And the second part of the discussion,
I would
Ken?
rather not go with the contract and use Schneider and say, as we have been using it, and try to do it in-house first. But that's my opinion, so.
I think all we're asking is a review
You got a
of the
majority.
contract. I think Bev had a question.
I don't know if I can interject here or not, but just a couple of things came to mind as you guys are discussing. First, with Jack talking about Eric being on probation, well, isn't the assessor on probation also?
That's
Just
true.
being appointed, so they're kind of evened out there. Secondly, if you do go with Schneider, whether it be and a part-time person or Eric as part-time, Schneider still, if you have a project that they think does not fall under your contract, the way I understand it, that will be considered a special project, and so that's extra money. Depending upon, and I don't know how that's gonna work out, if you're gonna give, if that's gonna come out of each office's budget, whoever the special project is from, or if the GIS is gonna have a budget for special projects. You just gotta look at, it's not just gonna be the 33.6 or whatever they're talking about, it could be extra. And then plus you still need a contact person, which I don't know, you keep saying the assessor's office, so that is that anyone in the assessor's office, or is it a specific person? I don't need to know that now, I'm just saying you need to pick a person that we have a contact to, if you go with Schneider. But there could be additional costs is what I wanted to mainly get out there. Your original contract, unless there's something else that you're gonna work in the contract, you know, if you don't have the exact contract now.
And I think that can be clarified in the contract and should be clarified in the contract. Any proposal that'll come before the board.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Where did we leave off, Justin?
Nope, I was done.
Okay,
I think you were kind of starting to talk first. Yeah, we talked about the fair, and that was about it.
yeah.
And
Um,
I'm done.
Thank you, Tess.
Thanks, Ted.
Yeah, you got ketchup.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's pretty much it. No, had a couple of meetings concerning the assessor's office transition, a couple of GIS meetings, and bike pedestrian meeting in La Crescent, which, because it's my area, quite involved and interested in improving there's a couple of spots particularly that create some danger if you're on a bike or walking. And then I forgot to bring, I got a Sulco report that I'll make sure that I distribute to everyone. But other than that, that's it. Closing public comment.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Mike.
You are?
Bruce Chemical from Caledonia, thank you. This is kind of off the cuff, and so I may retract some of these things later on, or you may correct me. With regard to the school situation, abandonment in Money Creek, though the verbiage is not equal, there's a certain amount of similarity with regard to reclamation of a mine versus the reclamation of a piece of property that's used for something else besides a mine. We still have a hole in the ground. It's called a septic tank. I don't know if there's a basement underneath this initial school building. I'm sure there's foundation work that needs to be dug up or whatever. So there is a hole in the ground. It's a safety factor. It's a public nuisance at this point. And a mine that's not reclaimed is a public nuisance as well. You have no legal description in your ordinance to handle this problem that's in Money Creek. But you do have a reclamation ordinance. And so as you're dealing with one property versus potential of another property, you need to see where the similarities lie, and you need to follow the law that you have versus the law that you don't have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Otherwise, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.